You were never lost. You're not a $10 bill. You weren't misplaced. But it's about finding your voice and being brave to stand fully in who you believe you're capable of being. The hardest, deepest, entrenched skeptics are the ones that I kind of relish bringing along in the process. Somehow, there is a lot of shame involved in not having an answer immediately. What tuition did you pay last week? And I'm going to say tuition instead of failures. My dad said that he wished I would soften my edge, and I proceeded to sharpen my sword.
You're listening to the She Lift Project podcast, a show dedicated to helping women achieve higher levels of success in the workplace. No matter where you are in your career, we want to help you grow. Now here's your host, Cynthia Kirkpatrick, a CPA, CFP, and Senior Financial Advisor at Milena Group.
Welcome to another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. I'm Cynthia Kirkpatrick. Thanks for joining us today. I'm so excited to have Lauren Colbert here today. Everything we're going to talk about, what you do, how you help people, and how you got to where you're at, I think is going to touch so many people and they'll relate. Where you're at today is at Filament. You are the Principal Strategic Facilitator. Mm-hmm. You help smart people think better.
Mm-hmm. Together,
this. Mm-hmm. And as I was thinking through that, there's high stakes, there's conflict, there's conversations, there's strategy, there's leadership, there's so much involved. And there can be some confusion, complexity, trying to get to that clarity point. Mm-hmm. With the best questions, the best answers, and moving the team together. So many of us face that.
Everybody faces it, whether they're at work, in their teams, or at home. But yeah, everybody faces it. Yes.
True. And I like that you even said at home mm-hmm. or wherever it might be, because mm-hmm. so much of what we talk about isn't just business. It is, but it's mm-hmm. life mm-hmm. and learning in general. And you're a team at home too. You're a team everywhere, really.
Yes. Yeah.
And don't you want to be, the most efficient, effective, oiled, just great machine going together?
That would feel great all the time, wouldn't it?
So people who are out there are probably like, okay, great conversations you want to facilitate. I don't understand. So can you explain Filament and what you do?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you, Cynthia, for this and for asking to be here. I saw the lineup of ladies that have been on the show before me, and I knew several of the names, and from a point of respect and admiration and awe, and to know that, the lineup would include, a version of my story in that list as well was extremely humbling. And I'm excited to share my story for the addition to the She Lift experience. So thank you so much for that.
Well, and I knew when we met that there was something, there was a connection, there was a light, there was a warmth, I said, oh, she's got to be on. She's got to be on. We're going to learn something, sure.
Thank you. So Filament, you asked about, kind of what it is and what we do. We do indeed help smart people think better together. But some of the really unique elements about the way we operate at Filament is not just that we are facilitators, because people have seen facilitation before and they think, I know what a facilitator is. Or they have seen someone present before and they think, I know what a presenter does. Or a speaker. I've seen people speak. I've seen good speakers and I've seen bad speakers. We're not speakers. We're not presenters. And we aren't facilitators in the way that most people think and know. So at Filament, we are entirely analog. And that sounds insane in this, 2026. I'm going to give this video a shelf life by saying that, where we're doing this right now. But that can sound really confusing to individuals who are thinking, you mean you don't stand in front of a PowerPoint? No, in fact, we don't. We've banned PowerPoint completely. Filament's been in operation it'll be 11 years this coming June. And a PowerPoint hasn't been shown at Filament in that amount of time. So some people want to know why that is. And we'll, hang on to that one. Not only do we operate in a completely analog way by helping smart people think better together, in this environment, very intentionally designed to establish creativity, innovation. We even have our space designed, and we're located in the Cortex Innovation District in Midtown St. Louis. We're adjacent to IKEA, if that's helpful for some. But it's intentionally designed to allow for not just the small group conversations, 3-4 top tables, but then really conversational, really accessible, really relaxed conversations around couch, table, chair sections where the teams can do a 2-point conversation as we're having right now, or a 3-point conversation as they're writing and they're looking down and then they look up again. Everything is designed to be also introvert and extrovert friendly. So we do have these moments of internal processing, go internal, we'll write, we'll do writing, and then we'll do some sharing out together out loud. So we can do internal and external or introvert and extrovert friendly work, helping teams think better together in an entirely analog way. We are delightful by design, playful, never silly, nothing slapstick, but we do invite creativity. And I can guarantee engagement, which is not something that a lot of people can do or would say that they guarantee, but through our tools and methods and by design of our founder and CEO, Matt Homan, it works.
You talked about, we talk about being analog and no PowerPoint.
Mm-hmm. None.
Why?
Don't do it. Ditch the PowerPoint. We actually have that on a tool sheet. We teach that, ditch the PowerPoint. It can be a way to deliver information. And the way that we help people think better together is through insight discovery. If you're going to gather people, imagine, if you will, a meeting with 5 or a conference with 5,000. If you've gathered people together, the value add is the thinkers at the table, the thinkers in the room. The value add is not the one sage from the stage or the sit and get where we just sit and listen and consume, and that's information delivery. A PowerPoint is information delivery. That could be your pre-work. Or it could be information or content that people have consumed in advance and then are prepared to engage with and then ask the next best question. We don't lead as consultants. We're catalysts for better conversation. And we know at Filament that the teams that we work with are not looking for the right answer, because there's no such thing as the right answer. There is the next best answer to the questions that we're asking. And are we always asking better questions? And are we getting better answers to our questions now than we had before? And are we constantly seeking to get better answers to our questions in the future than we have today? That's some of the work that we do. So you don't need a PowerPoint for that, to deliver information. And that can also become a crutch for your content. We have a bingo card Matt created that is the things that you can hear someone say while delivering a PowerPoint, like a slide deck. I shouldn't say a slide presentation. Oh, this is my favorite slide. Sorry, you can't read this. And then they can spend time on a slide. Sometimes people read the slide verbatim. Trust the audience to engage in the content. But if the content was so good, and it usually is, give me this content so that I can think about it, I can process it, and then I can start to ask questions about it, be curious about how it applies to me, be curious about how it applies to my team, be curious about what we're going to do with this information next, and use the thinking in the room to really build on that body of work for something better in the future.
We've had many people on the show talk about this, read a lot. Questions are so important.
Yeah.
How do we go from being young and curious and asking a million questions all the time to getting older, being leaders, whatever it might be, and we either stop asking questions or we don't ask the good ones?
I think in a lot of ways we've been conditioned that we need to know the answers. Somehow there is a lot of shame involved in not having an answer immediately. Performance has been not just expected, but rewarded in knowing an answer or giving people the comfort of certainty, even if they're uncertain. I need to know the answer to this. Oh, here it is. And then they proceed, maybe down the wrong path for a long time without being really curious about how will we know if this is successful? What does success look like? At what point can we change directions? Who else needs to be involved? What are we not thinking about? Knowing what this team knows, what should we anticipate as an issue? How can we better prepare for this? What have we tried before? Without saying, we've done that before, we shouldn't do it again. And what did we learn in that scenario? But performance and having the answer or having an answer has been so rewarded that being a leader or being right is the thing that we're leaning on versus really leaning on the strength of the team. And in some cultures, they're not comfortable with that. That's a level of vulnerability for a leader to say, I do not have all of the answers. I have you as a team to help me put the answers together or to come up with a plan so that we can do what we need to do. But it's because having the answers has been rewarded, and that is a performance that people know to do. It is a dance we are familiar with, and we expect from some, expect from many. And it would be very exposing and vulnerable for people to admit or say, I'm an excellent leader because I know how to help my team be motivated to ask the best questions. That sounds like a risk in some cultures.
It's looking at leadership differently versus you were this high individual contributor. Now keep doing that just as a leader and help.
Continue to perform, continue to do these, continue to check these boxes versus continuing to think strategically. Now, there are moments where we have good idea cutoffs. We can't always be questioning and thinking, but once you go on a path, what was the collaborative elements that you used? Like, how do we operationalize collaboration so that we can build this into or bake it into our DNA that we can celebrate the tuition that we've paid? And I'm going to say tuition instead of failures. Because if you can call a failure or a learning the experience that you were after, so if experience is the goal, we're always successful. And we don't need like everyone got a trophy kind of prize. That's not the objective here. The objective here is instead of seeing something as failure, as wrong or bad or shameful or an error that needs to be corrected as a flaw, like in a system, rather take an opportunity where somebody learned something and apply a different kind of thinking. Because we've all paid to take a class. You've paid to learn something of all kinds, right? So if you call that tuition, you've paid to learn a lesson. And in some cases, you paid to learn a lesson the hard way. Right. Many of us have done that. I am an official card-carrying member of the, learned life lessons the hard way, right? So when we can take things that we've learned the hard way or learnings that we've genuinely paid for in some way through resources, and then apply that knowledge. Here's what I learned, here's what I know, here's what we might try to do differently next time. Then you can celebrate paying tuition. And here's why. We gather all of this content and this information and these ideas and this data, and we continue to expand our repertoire of resources and knowledge and understanding. Cynthia, if you had an apple and I had an apple and we exchanged apples, we still just have one apple. If you have learning and tuition that you've paid, and I have learning and tuition I've paid, and we exchange that with each other, we're both better for it. And we continue to expand that body of knowledge. And also, you and I are neither one going to live long enough to make all the mistakes we need to make in this world to learn lessons. So it becomes a part of our, I'll say then, obligation or a role to continue to collaborate with others to say, hey, I've learned a lesson the hard way. Here's some tuition I've paid. Let's celebrate this together. I'm going to share this with you. Tell me what you see from your perspective. What might I have tried differently next time or try differently next time? And then take this information so that we can be better at it in the future.
You read so much, you hear so much about fail forward and failure's good. And maybe it's my age, maybe it's being a Gen Xer, I don't know. But it still makes me cringe, the thought of the word failure. And I thought, can we use a different word?
Yeah.
I thought of experience, but I like tuition too.
Pay
because
tuition.
You pay to go to college, you get out and you celebrate. You celebrate the fact that you just learned more for 4 years or however, and you paid
to learn.
And we celebrate it.
We've learned. We've paid to learn, in some way or another.
And for me, it will take a little bit longer to recondition all that, but I have to remind myself don't think about it as failure, think about it as experience. You were in this for an experience one way or the other, and you got that.
One of the things that we do with teams is that we issue a tuition receipt. And there are some teams that have adopted this as a part of a practice, so that at the beginning of, let's say, a standing meeting of some sort, or like a regular session, what tuition did you pay last week? And then you share with everyone. And you start to break it down in these bite-sized pieces. Not what tuition did you pay last year, or what tuition did you pay that cost the company millions? No, nothing like that. But let's start small. What tuition did you pay last week? And whatever that example is, then everyone shares this level of tuition that they've paid and what they learned from it. And that takes that bite-size elements, like the bite-size pieces, into the steps of being vulnerable as a team, which increases trust, connectivity, the understanding of the resources that are available, maybe what someone's going through, what someone else's work is like, and it really enhances the perspective taking as well. But if you can celebrate that with your tuition receipts on a pretty regular basis, then you can really bake it into your culture. And then the word failure doesn't have to be conditioned to be ugly or scary.
I imagine you're in a room with a new group or something, and you mention these tuition receipts, and there's just a look of like,
disgust, confusion, frustration, interest, curiosity piqued, everything. I've seen all of it.
Is there one instance or some of them that stick out where either it was people that you thought they'll never get on board with this and they jumped in, or they hesitated or resisted so much and then finally got it and you saw how that helped them?
I call it the unlock. I can physically see it in their body language. When we work with teams, it's often a 9 to 4 situation. So a team will come in and, to the Filament space, we have a whole process that we do, but when they come into the room for the start of the large group elements and we start to do the tone setting exercises in the room, or if we do tuition receipt in the room, and some people know that they're there for this operationalized collaboration exercise, that they're being facilitated through something for a purpose. And we set the tone through the norms of collaboration to do that. I can share those in a moment. But there will be some that sit with their arms crossed. They've got like this. And others who are just really into it with puppy-like enthusiasm. Like you can see that that's their jam. And other people, it's not their jam. It's not their thing. I do love helping to move the needle for the people who feel like this experience is a 3 on a scale of 1 out of 10, 10 being the best. The hardest, deepest, entrenched skeptics are the ones that I kind of relish bringing along in the process, because it's really easy to take somebody from a 7 to like a 9 or a 10. They're like, I expected to like this, and oh my gosh, that was amazing. I really like it. We got to come back. And other people who are like, I fully expected to hate this, and it wasn't so bad. Or as an introvert, this sounded like my personal hell. And you just made those hard conversations so easy and so amazing. You're right, this works. Because I think at the end of the day, the people that are part of a team that have committed to participating in our unique tools and methods with, so the Filament expectation is we're going to get through to something through these conversations. It won't be like anything you've ever done before. And it might be hard in some places, but the juice is worth the squeeze. And so then they realize at the end, when they have co-created something, that there's momentum and they learn something about their team members. And the culture is developed also throughout this day, not like from start to finish, but it starts to have this unlock. That's why I call it that. So that at the end of the day, their give a damn button is not broken. They've co-created a path forward. And they started out as a skeptic, but they see that this unique methodology actually works. And it's not just the same level of consulting standing in front of them going, and here's what you need to do based on one person's opinion, but rather, here's the conversation you just had, and here's how it evolved. And so that worked. So the biggest skeptics become some of the biggest fans. And then they also embrace not needing a slide deck because that's intriguing to them. And the experience through paying tuition and having these conversations that are really hard turn into something that they know is a tool that they can use moving forward.
I keep having this visual in my head after you just said all that. The give a damn button is broken. And
Staples started that, by the way, with the easy button.
Yes.
You're like, that was easy, or that was hard. Like, just when you think about those buttons. So yes, keep going. Sorry.
Well, it was so visual and so important to me. And again, I like how you said that, because if a culture gets there or if an individual gets there, that is, so, I don't know if deadly is the right word, but so detrimental to culture, business, innovation, health, all of it. When you get people who stop talking or stop asking questions or stop trying to move things forward, that to me was my give a damn button's broken.
Yeah. And the people that really suffer in that is the end user. It's the customer, it's the consumer, it's the client, it's the other businesses that they serve. When the team itself doesn't care about the work that they do together and they can't lean on one another, not just as a valuable resource, but the gathering of all of us makes us better. Like, we are, the company is, the brand is on our behavior with the client. The fuel for this should be our skills, knowledge, ability, our capabilities, the autonomy that we have, but then the strength of our teams around us. And then the customer benefits greatly from that, because you have kind of like what you're saying, like a well-oiled machine, but a machine that's thriving in some ways and working together to collaborate for the success of their outcomes, whatever those outcomes are, whether it's product, service, information, whatever that is.
I think as a leader, business owner, it's important to understand that. So you're building that. And I think as an individual, it's important for you to understand how to find that, because that's where that culture that's going to allow you, to ask questions, to bring your ideas to the table instead of potentially living in fear.
Yeah.
Or like there's walls, or you just have to retreat and hide. That your career over the long run, not only your career, but your happiness, your joy, and just your being is going to be so greatly impacted by the culture.
Yeah. Yes.
And you may think early on,
Full stop. Yes.
Yeah. You may think early on, oh, I can get through that. I can put up with that. Oh, it won't be that bad. I think it really unknowingly, it chips away at you, and
it's an erosion.
Yeah. It's suffocating, slowly suffocating who you are, your abilities. And then you're stuck.
And I think the part that, like, as we lean into this conversation and we have so many words and so many experiences where we can say these things so vividly because we've been there, we've felt it, we've seen other people in it. And it's almost easy to like swim in it till our fingers get pruny and just like sort of wallow in it. Recognizing it as one thing and then wanting to do something about it as another thing. So the work that we do at Filament with teams is in pursuit of the opposite of that, is to take stuck and become unstuck, is to take not a great culture and show that there's a way, and to take really hard conversations and mix it with everyone's thoughts and perspectives and honesty. Mix it with honesty and make honesty useful, make transparency helpful. That is almost euphoric. And we connected earlier about the sensations of magic and dreams. So let me touch on this for just a moment. People sometimes say it's like magic. What they do at Filament is like magic. I've never seen anything like it before. And I have kind of wrestled with this just a tiny bit. If somebody says something's magic, it's because magic is fundamentally, it's an illusion, it's a trick. But what we did is not an illusion, it's not a trick. People actually did that work together. And it's not a dream, because a dream is like this ethereal state, it's on another plane, but you were actually in the room, you actually did this work. But because it has this feel that creates this momentum and this growth and euphoria, again, a joy in the work that they do and hope about the work that they're doing, because of that, people call it magical and dreamlike. So it gets them out of the unstuck.
So, as we talked about, people are generally used to certain ways of facilitation, presentations, conversations, and most of those ways, if not all, don't really get us to that point of openness, honesty, clarity, next steps, working together cohesively. If I'm sitting here thinking, going, okay, this does not sound magical. It sounds amazing and transformative.
Yeah, yes.
What is it like? Like, walk me through. A team comes to you and says, we need help. And what is that whole process?
Yeah, thank you. People often come to us because they have heard about our process before, or they Googled us online. There's two very different paths. People who have given a Google, or AI has generated a search that says, this company does meetings. And in some cases, people contact us because they think we do events. We're not event planners. But the work that we do is with people who Matt likes to refer to as, and these are his words, so I'm going to give him these credit, as the charismatic deviant. So someone who understands leadership from a perspective of curiosity and from a perspective of, I need to know what my team is thinking. In fact, I need my team to be thinking together. We've hired someone to come in and tell us what to do before. We need a path that is slightly different. We need to try something different. So they have to have a willingness to try something different. They have to have the budget to try something different. Then commit to the time. And their investment in the work with us is because it is a representation of we keep doing the same thing over and over again. Definition of insanity, and we're getting the same results, which in many cases is none or not enough. So when we are approached, we offer what is called a sketch session, and it's a 90-minute session that we host in our facility. So for those that are in the St. Louis area, it's very easy to get to. Some people send others to our space, and for 90 minutes, they enter Filament space, which is about 10,000 square feet of meeting space, just designed completely for creativity and surrounded by nostalgia, like toys from the 70s and the 80s and then the 90s. And, we have Play-Doh on the table, and we use markers, and we have acupressure rings and fidget toys and things to help make things creative and to put people in a space that is unlike their own at this time, because space can hold memory. And to touch on that for just a second, like, have you ever walked into a room, or do you have a regular seat at the dining table? You're like, oh no, that's my chair. And that if you weren't in that chair, people would still gesture towards Cynthia's chair, and it'd be like, well, Cynthia says, because the energy or the space still holds your identity. So because space holds memory, when people come into our space, they are on neutral territory, which works really well for teams that need to work together. And then we do our sketch session, which is a 90-minute discovery that is fueled by Filament tools and methods, and then equipped with our live graphic artist. So we have an artist in all of our meetings who captures all of the key insights and learnings on floor-to-ceiling whiteboards. So in our space, it's called the boardroom, and it's labeled that because of its floor-to-ceiling whiteboards. We have our artist, a facilitator, our tools, which are printed on cardstock and written on by marker, and a team of, say, 4 to 7 to start with. Through our methods, we will unlock what we're hoping to achieve in the meeting that they're talking about. Maybe they need to come up with a strategy, or they're just looking how to work better together. And in some cases, we actually have meetings about meetings, Cynthia. And they will come to us and say, can you teach us how to have better meetings? Or can you teach us to be better facilitators? Yes, we do all of those fun things. But we can also help you to figure out what the next $200 million in revenue is going to look like, or how you're going to cut $200 million worth of waste or resistance in some other arenas, depending on what an organization needs at the time, both profit and non. And when we are done with that session, we take everything that we learned and oftentimes discover not just their self-assessed identity, like, oh, we need this. Okay, great. Well, let's talk about that. Then we uncover the 5 layers deeper and really get to the crux of, this is what we need to work on. Like, this will help give us the unlock, or we need to move this first before we can get to this larger, greater task at hand. We create a day, and then the team comes back. Everybody either flies to St. Louis or they're already here. There's a hotel across the street. The Metrolink station is also in the Cortex. Like, it's very accessible. And then from all over the country, and in some cases all over the world, there have been multiple occasions where there are anywhere from 6 to 10 different languages spoken in a Filament room. And everybody convenes to go through the tools and methods to discover the path through questions and teamwork, large group and small, to discover where they'll go next and leave with a path forward. Now, that looks very different for every organization, though we do have a top 20 set of tools, I would probably say, that are our go-tos, because they are such good tools and they can unlock amazing conversation and really put people in a spot to be able to start thinking in ways they never have before.
What are some of those tools?
Well, our favorite is called Wish, Wonder, Worry. Really popular. We share this with lots of individuals, but with one essential question, whatever that is. So I'll take a basic one. As we think about working better together, I wish we would. I wonder if we could. And I worry that we won't. And it's an internal moment. It's printed on a half sheet of paper, and everybody sits in the room. Let's say that there's 5 people in the room. Let's say there's 55 people in the room. As I think about working better together, I wish we would. Okay, so this is something that's on a top 5 to 10 list, Cynthia. This is a thing you've maybe articulated out loud before. I wish we would do this. And sometimes you can say this out of frustration, or sometimes you can say this out of hope and aspiration, but what is your wish? I wish we would. And you write it in marker. And then I wonder if we could, which is a little more of a curiosity, sometimes a moonshot, a little more ambitious. I wonder if we could. And when you step into that level of curiosity and you put something out there that maybe feels like a stretch, or as I mentioned, ambitious, in a room of 5 to 55 or 105 or whatever it is, even conferences where there's 500 people in the room or 1,000 people in the room, this tool sheet at the tables helps people to start unlocking their internal thinking. And then we allow them to go to a very deep, dark, pessimistic place. And I worry that we won't. And they get to identify in there so much about the culture, so much about their role, so much about the authority that they think they have or that they don't think that they have in the tool sheet as I think about us working better together. I worry that we won't. But depending on the amount of time that we have and the amount of people that are in the room, each person gets to share out one of those or all three, depending on the size of the room, as I mentioned. And it's so interesting how it can level the room. So one of the things that we do pretty often, and I share this when we're working with clients, is that we just level the playing field. So if we have decision makers in the room along with tacticians in the room, we level the play. We balance the power, we sweep away the eggshells, and we eliminate the politics. Because the conversation in the room is fueled by the tools and then the third-party facilitator, myself or Matt, who then guides the conversation and, okay, great, thank you, now next, and moves it along in this air traffic controlled kind of way. So there's so much structure to the conversation, but everyone's conversation is a part of they're participating in the conversation. So that tool alone is a huge revealing element, and we use it pretty often. Though for some clients that have been back as repeats that, come back again and again, we try to introduce new versions of things like that to help get them to unlock at the beginning of the room. But that's an example of one.
Before you even said this, I was going to go into my next question, but you mentioned eggshells, politics, leveling
power.
Yeah, the playing field. I'm like, ooh, this is very different, vulnerable, unknown territory for, I'm sure, say a lot, but probably most people, especially most people in leadership, willing to give up that facade of having to know everything and have it perfect.
Those are our customers. That's back to the charismatic deviant. Somebody who has this level of security in themselves as a leader that can say, I know I don't have all the answers. I don't need to have all the answers. I have a team of 200 people. I don't have to have all the answers. I have geniuses working for me. We have this great hiring process, and I know that everybody that works here that carries the torch, that bears our name, is an excellent contributor. So leaning into that. The people who work really well with Filament are the leaders that say, this isn't about me. It's not about my ego. I've checked my ego long ago. This is about succeeding. This is about winning. And I want to win more than I want to be right. Because the winning benefits everyone. Customers, company, everyone. Being right benefits one person, maybe a couple of people, and only temporarily.
Yeah, it makes the better company, the better culture, and the better impact for the end client, customer, user, whatever it might be. So use these buzzwords that are out there now, right? Vulnerable, authentic, real.
I wish those weren't buzzwords and that was just baked into our vernacular. It's a buzzword because it makes someone uncomfortable or it triggers someone like other buzzwords can. Or it's just jargon, and it's only jargon for people who say it to be heard saying it versus who say it because they believe it and they practice it. It's not a buzzword for someone who practices it. Like, no, this is who I am. This is how I operate. It's a buzzword somebody who says it for the sake of being heard saying it.
Right. Like, I've been through the opposite, and I really want that authenticity. I really want to be in a space where I can be me. I can show up as me.
And that's rewarded. And that is part of the success of the team.
So you sound really good at what you do now. And I think this feels so much newer. I mean, I'm 48 now. So I've been around the block for a while. I don't think this was around when I was 28. It feels so much newer. So I can't imagine you're young thinking, one day I'm going to facilitate conversations.
Yeah.
How?
I mean, this will actually, I was thinking about this and it makes my nose sizzle and my eyes water because I'm so grateful this exists. First of all, not just like for me as a person who gets to operate in this space where there is just abundant joy and challenging work that's meaningful. Like we just move the needle constantly, but not just moving the needle for organizations and watching this change and reparation and growth, and people come back and they're like, we had an amazing 2000 whatever because of you, we're coming back, like, so we can have an even more amazing next time. Like, holy cow, thank you. Like, that's awesome. And then some of the works that we get to do in our programs, but all of this goes to the brainchild of Matt. I really will not be able to give enough credit to Matt Holman's stick-to-itiveness, his investment, his trial and error. No pun intended. He's a recovering attorney.
Well, I'm kind of a recovering CPA. I get the titles and names.
But he set out to build something that he saw was a need and did that in such a way that we're experiencing it today. And to our working knowledge, no one works like him all over the world. In fact, as we have this conversation right now, he's in Paris and then he's going to Portugal next week. And we perform filament tools and methods across the globe. Both he and I have had the chance to do that. And some of the work that we do comes from inside of innovation districts, and then some come from inside of global companies, and then some come inside of really small St. Louis area nonprofits. Knowing that the world works better when people meet better, that the meetings themselves, where we spend so much of our time, like how much time during a week do you spend in a meeting, right? And we ask this question to people in rooms all the time. And people will raise their hand and be like, 75% of my day, 80% of my week, 90% of my week, almost 100% of my week is spent in meetings. Okay, great. At what point do you stop and try to make yourself better at meetings or the conversations or the reason you meet or the work that you're doing inside of those meetings? Like, when do you get better at that? So that comes from some of the work that he does and the way that he's developed the skill and cut his teeth. When he was looking for another facilitator, I think writing that job description was really hard for him. I am in a position of, like amazing privilege and immense gratitude that I get to not just serve in this organization, but alongside someone who's as skilled as the work that he does. So that's something that I look up, someone I looked up to and something that I aspired to be. Now, the skills that have gotten me here are, as we were mentioning earlier, like really kind of interesting and unique ways to cut my teeth on what I do now, but to be working as the other facilitator in this organization. So there's the original, and then there's me. And we joke, like Liam Neeson says, like, we have a very particular set of skills. It's just makes us laugh, right? And maybe you, but like, we enjoy saying it, right? But those skills are room awareness, that balancing of the power, the equalizing of not just the power dynamics, but eliminating the eggshells, making honesty useful, using these tools and methods, but having the business acumen to understand where an organization is leaning and what they need to do and what that looks like. And this is through a variety of business experience and conversations that we've had over the years, different forms of education, and different just experience. Experience has been the most amazing teacher for this. No one sets out to be a facilitator of this kind intentionally, though people often reach out and say, I'd love to facilitate, or I am a facilitator, I would love to do this kind of work. And that is something that I think people are more aware of now and, want to be a part of, like, what's hot. So from a business perspective, we serve organizations, both profit and non, Fortune 50s, local nonprofits. Some of the really cool work that we get to do, and this is extremely rewarding, is through our programs in partnership with being inside of the Cortex Innovation District. Thanksgiving, which is something that you may have heard of, is one of our largest programs for the year, and it is probably one of the coolest things that happens across the whole country. Thanksgiving is given its name because it originated in the first week of November. So instead of Thanksgiving, we're thinking better together. So Thanksgiving. And it's a day where at Filament, we partner a nonprofit organization that's working to solve a problem that's not financial related, because if you said, we want to solve your financial problem, they would just say, we need more money. And then we partner them with a business partner. So an organization that has a team that is, has an area of specialty, is looking to give back in the community themselves, is looking to advance or develop their leaders, their aspiring leaders, their advanced leaders, and to pull them away from their day-to-day and help be a thought partner with a nonprofit in the area just for the day using Filament tools and methods. So we have a best practices workshop, different tools and methods that we teach them how to use. We even do a blind draft where they get to pick the nonprofit that they work with based on just the challenge with no identifier of who that nonprofit is. So someone doesn't get to say like, oh, this nonprofit is too small for us to work with, or this nonprofit is too big for us to work with. That's intimidating, because there's a little bit of that could take place if someone got to judge at first sight who they were going to pick to work with. But we bring them all together in the district for a day, or in the area where we do this for the day. And there's a schedule, there's a time, and at the end, they have worked to be a thought partner for how they will start to experiment with solving the problem. Now, we are not slaying all the dragons in one day, and no one is expected to produce an outcome or develop a strategy, but they are helping this nonprofit who is often under-resourced with, time, money, and talent, and equipped with this organization that has their own problems. And honestly, the blend and the blur is fabulous, because sometimes the business partners walk away and they're like, I actually think we got more out of it than the nonprofit did. Or the nonprofit is like, we would have never thought this way on our own. This was amazing. And then they put together these boards at the end of the day. We set up what is like a middle school science fair-esque. There's tables with the board that displays the work that they did and their outcomes and who was involved and what's their unreasonable request and what are the steps that they're going to do now following it. Some of the nonprofits have found board members as a result of that, or additional volunteers, or more awareness for their events, which is extremely cool. And that is something that we're also exploring and doing a little more often with local universities. So we partnered with WashU most recently to do Thanksgiving U. We did that out of Del Mar Divine because Maxine Clark, who's also been a guest, is a huge fan of Filament and is just an enormous advocate of continuing to develop the Del Mar Divine and the areas, and through her partnerships with WashU, supporting the nonprofits that are in that area also. So we, using Filament tools and methods, have done Thanksgiving U, and we do plan to do that in the coming years as well. The other experience that you have personally been to was Wavelength, which is something that I have the great pleasure of just sorting through and pretending to lead.
Yeah, because for people who don't know, it's bringing women together to work through challenges, issues, transformation, thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So using Filament tools and methods, it's the women's professional development community. And it's not networking. That is the one thing that I very much wanted to provide as a gap to fill in the community, because I think there's a lot of great networking opportunities and still a lot of people we haven't met. But even when we meet someone in a room, that doesn't mean that we get to know them. So when we're solving problems and challenges, and we've seen this so often, not just in our room that we work with our clients, but then Thanksgiving is a great example of this. But when we work to solve challenges together with the people at the table and operationalize collaboration in the way that we do, you then share this level of connection with somebody, and you meet someone, and then you get to know enough about them that you're like, yes, I would like to work with you, or I would like to partner with you, or I know someone you should work with. And the connections become really robust. And women have grown businesses, start businesses, and some of them come back. And I actually, like, at the first few times I heard this, I was like, oh, you're just saying that. They're like, no, this changed my life. And so Wavelength is the name of that program that is specifically built for women and powered by Filament. And at Wavelength, everyone emits a signal. So when we gather, we sync up and we make our signal stronger or brighter together. And we have been, through the research that I've done with that, the focus is on helping people increase their voice or strengthen their voice, help with identity. Women often have identity issues around mothering, about what being successful is, and really trying to break down those walls of perfectionism that society says a woman should make everything look effortless, when really, this shit's hard. There's a lot of effort in here, But so how do we make this real? Like, how do we have these conversations about menopause and about racism and ageism and sexism and climbing a ladder or being perfectly happy where I am, or trying the new thing that's on the inside that I know is there. Like, I feel it, but I just don't know how to tap into it because I don't have the resources or the allies to do that. And so we've really worked to develop that type of skill set. And then speaking of skills, our other program is New Skills for Work. And that's the first Friday of most months at Filament. And that's our co-ed experience where we introduce a Filament tool and method, and people develop a new set of skills, and they can use the tool and methods, but not just with themselves and their own businesses, but with the people who come together in the room. And it continues to build community through innovation at the Cortex District, but at a Filament event.
I remember being at the Wavelength event introduced by Stephanie Zettel, and something that stood out to me was you had said, basically I didn't realize, but I was building something that I needed.
Yeah. I have come to that realization. Was that in January?
I believe that was.
It was, because that was a moment I had to think about through the year. What was this for? Like, because people were like, we didn't realize that you were going to be that it would work so well. I think that's we thought you were dreaming too big, but you have in fact done this. And it's not me, it's the power of the people that are in the room. Like, it's only ever because the people who show up in the room, they're the participants, they're the ones that do it, that do the work, that do the hard work, that have the conversations. But that's what I wanted and needed, and not in a performative way. Like, I don't want to just sit there and be like, oh, I was there, I was seen, see and be seen, or, take pictures, post online and walk away. No, let's do some work. Let's think better together. Let's develop a relationship that we didn't have before with someone who sharpens my sword.
Being in that room, I heard from several, like I was let go from this company, or I was phased out or downsized or whatever, and I decided to start this business or move over here. And you could see the joy in the way they spoke and just the look on their face. I imagine, because it's been about a year, maybe not quite a year, for the year for the whole, that there are a lot of people that you've seen come through, a lot of transformations. I mean, anything stick out to you that it could have been somebody who didn't really participate early on and then surprised you later, or had this really, what might be seen as a big shift or 180 from what they were before and didn't see that coming?
People tend to show up in the Wavelength room both hesitant but hopeful for what they'd like to do. They have heard or they believe that the capacity to be the thing that they think that they're capable of being exists inside that room and through the conversations. So I will say that. I have had several women write back and say, and usually these are private stories that get shared, this inspired me to start the business. I knew to, push the damn button, like do the thing. That has happened several times. I launched my business because I met with somebody who, connected the dots for me and validated my thinking, but also gave me the path structurally and through like logistics and business acumen. Or I knew what not to do, which is just as important a decision, whether you're in an organization or a company or you're looking to add something new or different. We can't always be adding new things. We have to be able to stop something, to start something, or then to continue with intention. So businesses started, jobs left. This isn't for me, I know this now. Or conversations that they're having with their team members. I've leaned into this hard conversation, or this tool made this possible, or this community is the support system that I was missing and that I needed. There's a lot of that. Yeah.
For those who may be listening to this on audio, they cannot see your outfit.
Oh,
you are. I'm where I'm going to go with this is ask this question. I'm going to think of little Lauren, like as cool as this when she's young.
I'm glad you think it's cool.
It is very cool. It's these amazing, like glamorous tennis shoes.
So I shout out to St. Louis designer Cynthia Richards. So if you're just listening, you need to go check it out. She makes these amazing wedge heels that just ooze personality, and I think you can have a lot of fun with them. And so check that out.
You definitely are having, at least I'm having fun with this, and just your whole vibe and the way you look. And so I'm thinking of little Lauren, however young back we want to go, but like, how did you get started, or what was your start? Was it, in high school, or how did Lauren get to where she's at today?
Yeah, that's a really fun question, and nuanced, right? So many different nuances. So I'm a twin, and I joke that I've been A/B testing my whole life. There are versions of our story, Haley and I's story, my twin Haley, who is both has, an undergraduate degree, a master's degree, a PhD, postdoc work. And through her work in developing tools and methods, measurement tools and methods in the medical community for pediatric feeding abnormalities, which was sparked from the unique needs of her first son, my oldest nephew, because his chromosome deletion and was the only known version of its kind at that time. I don't want to misspeak now. I do think that there's another version of his same or similar chromosome deletion, though that did not make his pediatric feeding needs completely isolated. But the ecosystem, the world was really ill-equipped to support teams with homes, lives,
right.
Families. They're all the same, right? Families with the tools and the support and the resources that they needed. So my sister set out to change that. And I don't know if she said, I'm going to change this, or if she just answered a need, kind of like I mentioned for myself, that was something that she needed. But her work alongside her team and her research team, they're called the Feeding Flock. And then she does a lot of work with Feeding Matters, which is a nonprofit organization that really leans into supporting pediatric feeding disorder, and ARFID, which is the avoidant restricted food intake disorder, and working to blend both the medical community and the psychological community's assessment and diagnoses of these things, which can be very similar and confusing at some points. My sister is amazing, and her knowledge and skill and ability and degrees, multiple, and ongoing research and work in the academic community. And her CV is like 17 pages long of things that she's published and where she's been mentioned. And it's impressive. I'm proud. It's overwhelming. I'm embarrassed. I have this interesting tension and conflict. And she would tell me I'm being ridiculous, right? And it's still there. It's still true for both of us in these different ways. Haley has blue eyes. I have brown. Haley had lighter hair. I had darker hair. I had slightly darker skin, and she had slightly lighter skin. My father's Italian. My mother's, a strawberry blonde, greenish blue eye, freckled covered German. It's just this really interesting experience that we had growing up, even though in the same household was pretty different. When I was 13, and just all throughout, I was more vocal and outspoken. And this is just a really interesting blend of nature versus nurture. Like, I've kind of always been that way, but I have always probably had more of a daring streak. Haley's extremely daring. Like, there's a lot of things that she does that I think is so brave and so bold. And I don't know how she does it. Like, it just blows me away. But my voice has never been a problem. I was in dance, and I love to perform. I love to act. I love to be on stage. I wasn't a great singer. She was a good singer. She used to sing. But I was a cheerleader. And we were both leaders in our own way, and participated in like school groups growing up where we got to speak and compete and be leaders. Just looked different. And when I was 13, my dad said that he wished I would soften my edge. I now know that means I wish that I had helped make other people more comfortable. Like, I wish that we didn't have to explain Lauren. Right? But you know what I'm talking about as I say that. And I proceeded to sharpen my sword. And I mentioned sharpening a sword earlier, but it is a thing for me. It became a mantra. I wasn't going to soften my edge for anyone. There's something in here that I knew could do something, but felt right.
When I think my first thought or reaction is, okay, there's some people who don't lean into who they really are and double down and say, no, there's nothing, maybe there's some refinement, but there's nothing wrong here. I'm going to lean into who this is. And then there's probably some people thinking, oh, shoot, I'm 40s and I'm figuring that out. How does she know at 13?
No, I knew then that was a thing I needed to lean into, but it was really like my late 20s and throughout my whole 30s. And, even again in my early 40s that I knew that this was the right path, but I'm still unlearning and relearning a lot of things to help hone that skill and to be a great model. I recently became a grandmother. My oldest son and his wife had a daughter, she's a month old. And now it's, what will my granddaughter remember or say about the way I showed up for her, and what integrity looks like, and what love looks like, and what being fully yourself and fully authentic looks like. And so a lot of things I do now, I think, okay, this is for Milena. This is for her. This is so she has someone that's blazed a trail for her also, so that things can be easier for her to, be her own person. I think that would be exciting.
So from 13, sharpening your sword, how does that evolve? What does that turn into?
I went to Mizzou to study sports medicine. I wanted to be one of the first female athletic trainers in the NFL. This is in the late 90s. I got pregnant in my last year of college. I dropped out, moved back home, got married in that order. Don't recommend it, but it's what I did. And then did like a stay-at-home thing. Have always had a very strong entrepreneurial bent. My family, I grew up in the car business. My father and my grandfather were the local Chevy and Buick dealers for over 50 years. And so I grew up inside of a business, but I grew up inside of this business witnessing my grandma, I don't know. She ran the show. I know that now. I don't think I knew that then, but I do now. And she was really something to admire and respect. And she was respected way before that was allowed, I think is the way I'll say that, the way it is now, or not questioned as much as it, now as it was then. Just really dynamic. And she had style. She had a lot of style. So if you like my style today, I just want to say, hey, Grandma. She's not with us anymore, but that probably goes back to her. And the work that I did in college made me a great boy mom. I'll be honest, that was amazing to be a boy mom, and both of my children were involved in athletics and clubs, and there were so many things to need to know, to be prepared for, and then to help care for, the immediate care and prevention of injuries of different kinds. So that was just a really awesome experience, and met a lot of wonderful people, and I love that community. Through that experience, I got to work for Varsity Spirit Corporation and help with the ESPN Cheer and Dance Nationals, and then the camps over the summer. If you hear about cheer camps over the summer and dance camps over the summer, I got to help operate that as an administrator. So running a camp, as a 19-year-old, where there's 300 people that have shown up from all these different communities. And that's something that I did. We would do it from start to finish, university relations, organizing the housing, putting the people in the rooms, registering them, managing all the money and all the needs and the schedule. And I mean, that's wild to remember that we did that work then, but it was also just a huge part of establishing a level of not just credibility, but experience in operating a business, on a day-to-day basis, fast-paced business. Then the work that I've done in retail, event planning, businesses out of my own home and when my children were growing up, and then work that I did in branding and identity. Because as I joked earlier, I've been A/B testing forever. It really helped me to understand what it was to develop a brand. I've represented product lines for skincare and makeup. I've been an affiliate. I've sold individual product lines. I've earned the fancy cars. Those things that you see or hear, I've done those different things. And as a result of that part, from a creative perspective, I'm just going to keep throwing all these cool things out there. I've been a makeup artist for weddings and photography for special events for almost 25 years. On the weekends and in the evenings, it's my art still to this day.
Makes sense.
Oh.
Makes sense with what I'm seeing.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So I love makeup. I love playing with makeup. I love helping people to, look and feel like really confident and better about themselves, especially on really big days. I think that's important. There's a level of confidence that goes along with that, and I can help. And then the work that I did with previously, and I think your very first guest on this show was Tara Kinney.
Yeah.
So I worked at Atomic Revenue for about 5 years alongside Tara and team and, other really just wonderful people there, like, Ryan and Steph and Liz. And there's a ton of great team members there. And I had a lot of great introductions to the St. Louis business ecosystem as a result of that. And it is through that work that Filament became aware of my skills and abilities as a facilitator. So that when the job description came out, someone handed it to me and they were like, oh my gosh, this sounds like you. And so I read the job description for the Filament facilitator, and I was like, oh, this actually does kind of weirdly like sound like me. Like, we need this person to be this. And I was like, that's me. I do that. And so I called the person who I knew had written it, because I knew who that was. And I was like, hey, so asking for a friend. Like, what is this? And they were like, oh, thank you so much for asking. We wrote this job description with you and one other person in mind. Truly glad you found it. We'd love for you to apply. And so myself and over 100 others did. And I made it almost to the end, and I didn't get picked. They picked someone else. And then a year later, the job description came back up again. And I remember the same person handed it to me. She was like, hey, look, this job is open again. And I was like, oh, I don't think I can handle that level of rejection again. Like, that was really upsetting. I don't know that. They're like, no. It's out there again. Something's happened. Something's changed. They've changed, or you've changed, or whatever. It doesn't matter. You should try again. And so I did. And they said that I was the only repeat, and they were really glad that I came back. And that's where we are ever since. Been operating as a Filament facilitator.
I was not prepared for you to say that you didn't get it.
I was not prepared to say that I didn't get it. Cynthia, that was really disruptive to my psyche and what I thought were the skills that I had. But it needed to happen, and it worked out really well.
Why did it need to happen?
For the same reason that people need to know what they want to stop in order so that they can start something. I think organizations need to know what they're, like, in pursuit of what they want, what they don't want, and what they don't need to really get to the heart of what they do need.
So that was one of those tuition receipts, tuition paper?
Yes, that is, you were right.
But I got to go back, because you mentioned that you dropped out before you finished
I did.
college. Did you go back?
I didn't even mention like education. I am one capstone class away from having my undergraduate degree. And at this point, it's like, viva la resistance, several times I have entertained like just finishing the class so I can just get the degree. But I worked in marketing, and I worked in branding, and I operated as a fractional CMO for so long that very organic subject and methodologies and tools were about being an active practitioner, getting your hands dirty, playing with the tools, finding out what's work, testing using the tools. There's no static education or textbook, and I've read plenty textbooks and books that are printed, and by the time they're printed, they're obsolete. So no, this is from the school of just 100% experience and lessons learned, and just diving in and finding out what works. Now, I have certifications, and I've gone back and done other trainings. I have people that I lean into as my challenge network and as a support network. There's bodies of work that I study and things that I've researched. I'm a better student now than I was then. That's for sure.
It's true. I mean, I think I'm probably a better learner in finding what I want to learn versus going to a class and being told what I'm going to be taught.
Yeah. The other part about that experience for me was that there was no one track or no one method for learning that was going to set me up for the variety of skills that I have today, or that I need to have to recognize what to do next. Nothing, no one track would have done that. And I know that there are many people who have conversations that are like, oh, this is what I studied, but this is what I do. or this is what I wanted to do and, changed my mind. And I joke now at 46, like I'm still figuring out what I want to be when I grow up, though I really think I'm pretty excited about where I am right now in a way that I've never been before. When I taught school, which has, been part of that bringing up, I operated as a long-term substitute for different, like a variety of reasons, maternity leaves, cancer leaves, just different reasons why a teacher needed to be in a classroom for longer than a week, maybe a month, maybe a whole semester, sometimes a whole year. And so I just dove deep into that. And I actually went back to school for education and built up credit hours for that, because you have to have so many credit hours to be a substitute. And I actually don't know if that's still the same requirement or not, but yeah, I did a lot of teaching, and some of that school work and teaching is what put me in front of the opportunity to help start an education foundation. And in 2012, I helped start the Lincoln County R3 Education Foundation alongside Tracy Black, who is just a great dear friend and was, more brave and bold than I was at the time. I think that her work and the way that I respect and admired her has helped me to become who I am today as well. But the work that we did there under the tutelage of that superintendent, who had really great path forward for the school district, knew that the philanthropy from that education foundation, which had never been successfully started, the private dollars for public good would help. And so we helped start that education foundation. We pitched a tent. We took our show on the road. We were talking to people. We were gaining money, raising money. We helped do the event that named the FEMA tornado shelter the Hungate Performing Arts Center. So we got to do some really great work for the whole community that benefited the theaters and arts programs in the school district, along with music and band and just the performance with people who are alumni. So David Hungate, who is one of the original members of the band Toto, on the song Africa and Roxanne and Hold the Line and things that you've probably listened to and love.
We saw them earlier this year, I think, in concert, or last year, depending on the timing. Love them. Yeah,
so he later went on to do all kinds of scores and work and play on many different albums. And the Hungate Performing Arts Center was in honor of he and his father, who went to school in the area. And so that exposure and those relationships and developing that work, not just for the community, but for the future of education in the school district, made it important to continue to work with teams to help with education and awareness and building relationship and building communities, and that level of responsibility of, if you have the skill and you can do this and you're supported in these different ways, you have to execute on that, because it is your duty to take these skills that you have, I believe, and put that out there in the world for the benefit of a whole student body every year graduating, for a whole community to have access to these resources and this facility in the way that they do, to increase their awareness about the history of the area. And that's no different than working with a team or a company now. Like, teams have history, teams have, different perspectives and different reasons, and the education that comes out of it increases or enhances the recruitment and the retention and the quality of the output. I think that all of that is connected and recognizable in different ways.
It's like I'm hearing you talk. I'm like, oh my gosh, she did that, and then she accomplished that.
It's
she
silly.
also did that and that, and and
a lot of it overlapped.
You're where you're at today, and you're super excited, and you're definitely skilled to set you up to do well with what you're doing. But I'm thinking, okay, her life was not that easy, or that aligned, or there was
none of it's been aligned. I think a lot of it's been uncomfortable, but I think pushing through the discomfort is what's made it more worth the earning.
Yeah, we had talked before about kind of being what we think everybody else thinks we should be.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put words in the mouth. Part of this is my own experience and hearing from others, that you then lose yourself in those moments. And I want to say, for many of us in our 40s, especially women, finding your way back to who you really are, and being that's okay. Not only is that not just okay, but that's beautiful.
A really dear friend of mine actually sent me a postcard that I still have on my refrigerator. You were never lost. You're not a $10 bill. You weren't misplaced. But it's about finding your voice, and I'm going to say the words being brave enough to stand fully in who you believe you're capable of being, whether you're supported or not. Like, even in the face of, you make us uncomfortable, or, you know, from like family members who either could never been able to articulate what I do. What does Lauren do? I don't really know, but it looks like she's having fun. Yeah, but just different ways that, I mean, struggle has shown up in a variety of ways. And I think everyone has a version of that. So that's not the part to lean on here, but rather to say, I see it. I respect the hell out of it. I get it. But I never stayed in it so long that it claimed me. In so many ways, like that phoenix rising from the ashes kind of thing is just been about, what will I do with this information and how will I use it again in the future? And back to tuition paid, like, these are different forms of tuition that I've paid, whether I have a college degree that says so or not. It's not necessary.
Yeah, things, you know, something on paper isn't always equivalent to the real experience. And
I mean, growing up on a farm and working in fields, and it was a hog farm for several years, you know, being around livestock, being around animals, being around close family, watching the car business develop, rise and fall, even just with the automotive industry's challenges, just witnessing all these things and struggle then through the lens of the adults in my life and the challenges there. And then now using some of this information, like, okay, I know what they did, and here's what I think I can do. And then also, I think these ways, I feel this, being allowed to feel it, and then what do I need as a result of that? And am I working toward that? Or am I still working to be the person I think other people want me to be, whether that was their desire or not? That perception is something that is still an ongoing element of learning and unlearning and unlearning and learning. Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking, imagining the room where these, you know, teams, companies, organizations come to Filament to work through those things, or, you know, Wavelength, women coming to work through so much of what you said. Like, I just feel like that brings it all back, circles around to say, that's what people are bringing to the table in those meetings, and the wanting to work through things, learn things, and come out better on the other side, but the better version of themselves in this thing we call life.
Yeah. I one of the things that we talked about previously was like the level of resources. I can remember getting divorced and having nothing. And I mean, like, really, like, I had children. I had a car that would drive to town and overheat. I had, you know, a set of dishes and maybe a bed or something. I mean, just like really silly, trivial things. I'm really fortunate to have family that helped and supported, and people who bought me groceries, and, you know, my grandma got me a car, like, you know, things I knew I needed, or they knew I needed, in order to just, like, you know, not just get by, but like, hey, here's the thing I can do for you. Let me do this. And so now I do love to pay that forward. Like, here's the thing I can do for you, whatever that is. Because when you qualify for food stamps and you're on the NECAC housing waiting list, you will grind hard to make a difference, especially when you have children that are depending on you, or you know that they are having to go without for the result of your choices. That's not their fault. You know, my choices led us into those situations. So that is definitely something that I've worked really hard to not just correct, but to really support and educate and make sure that it doesn't have to, it's never harder than it has to be. But as hard as it could be or should be, you know, should be, I guess, just to learn something.
We could probably go another half hour, 40 minutes just with what you brought there.
Yeah. I think that being under-resourced, gosh, it can make you really admire a nonprofit. I think being under-resourced can help you put a different perspective on people who are trying really hard to improve their circumstance. And if you have some knowledge or connection or resource in some way for them, be that. Don't make that harder for them. And remind yourself of all the people who have helped you get through or pass through different hurdles in your life. Like, yes, It takes a village experience. It really does, and continue to honor the fact that we're all still part of this village, and we can be helpful in those ways.
I'm thinking, wow, that's just a great way to sort of come back around and wrap this up, that it's about a cohesive, good, working together village in all areas of our lives. And how are we showing up in those spaces and contributing in those spaces?
Truly collaborative, not performative.
And so organizations, people, women, others wanting to build those skills you had talked about, how do they find you, find Filament, reach out?
Yeah. LinkedIn, our website, come to the Cortex, attend our programs. But go to the website, meetfilament.com. Send me an email. Find me on LinkedIn, Lauren Colbert, which is fun because you asked earlier how to pronounce it. And I get some people say, is it Colbert or is it Colbear, Colbert? And my husband's name is Stephen. So when we go to restaurants, sometimes they be like, oh, Stephen Colbert. We're just like, nod, yes. Yeah, that's fun. So, and he's a great sport with that, which is a lot of fun. But Lauren Colbert, or on LinkedIn, or Lauren at meetfilament.com.
And you'll go on there, you'll see the artwork, which is amazing. You'll get the feel of
the filament art, because our primary artist, our full-time artist that's in-house, our team member, Todd, who is just exceptional.
He's amazing.
So talented. I mean, I can't... We have an amazing team member in Carrie. Lakeisha helped build Thanksgiving to what it is. I can't not say these things about these wonderful people. There's no version of any of these stories that has happened in a vacuum or solo individual. Todd, our artist, is just truly exceptional, and also does gigs as a caricature artist for events, like for after proms and fundraisers and things like that. But there are so many wonderful and dedicated people to improving different environments for others that we are surrounded by. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, you can feel, I mean, I personally can say you can feel the positive energy and vibe and wanting to do and be better. And I know sometimes I say things so quickly, but Filament is Filament for those who...
Like the inside of a light bulb, the filament in a light bulb.
Well, thank you for coming today. I mean, we literally could fill another hour with more things, if not more. So I knew not only learning about the company and your path and how you really change people, change lives, change teams was so important to share. So thank you so much for being so open.
Cynthia. This is a gift for everyone. Thank you for doing She Lift. And to your husband, JJ.
I know.
Like, they don't know this, but I guess behind the scenes, there's a genius behind this. Yeah.
Well, and I often will joke or refer to him or say something in many of these episodes that he's just sitting in the back behind there. And so when you said Toto and brought that up, I knew he was geeking out. So you'll be talking to him after this about that. So yes, definitely JJ. And honestly, this was his brainchild to say that women have stories and women don't share their stories. And we need to learn from each other. We need to connect. So
more stories.
Thank you for bringing that to the table today.
Thank you.
This concludes another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. To hear more episodes of the show, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about our mission of helping women reach higher levels of success, visit sheliftproject.com and sign up to receive the latest news, ebooks, videos, and more.